Elon was upset that this engineer working on the deal, didn't know the technology well, and he fired him. So I went in there the next morning, and he kind of grilled me on like, do you know this subject matter? And I was like, yeah, this is how it works. And he was like, great, you're hired. He works in mysterious ways, that guy. Zip2 was a cool company. Elon and I sat across from each other. It was like a lab environment. They were still inventing the product as they were running it.
I remember meeting him for the first time. He gave me a demo of what he had done, which was online yellow pages with maps and directions. And he turns to me and he goes, "It's cool, huh?" And I go, "Yeah, it's really cool." I'm staring at him. He's staring at me. And I'm thinking, is this like a trick, interview where they're trying to see, like, can I come up with something?
He kind of assesses people, and I've noticed he tends to stare at them, and it can be very intimidating.
The first time I met Elon, he was pitching Zip2. I remember it well. He and Kimball, they were relatively new to Silicon Valley, been there only a few months. I just remember thinking they're bright, properly self-confident, that perfect entrepreneurial mix of having enough self-confidence to be humble, enough intelligence to respond to questions in a very nimble manner.
My first week, I come in and I see two people kind of passed out on a couch. Okay, one was Elon and one was the summer intern we had. Okay, they both pulled an all-nighter. It turned out that was a pretty common occurrence with Elon.
And we'd stay at the office until late hours, and then eventually he'd fall asleep under his cube with his physics book as a pillow. Elon is a unusual fellow. He knows just about everything about everything.
But I remember Elon, one time it was about 9 o'clock at night. Elon was going around the office looking to see who was sitting in their cubes. And there weren't many people sitting in their cubes. It was 9 p.m. and his face turned red. And he was just really angry that the entire company wasn't there in the office at 9 o'clock at night.
He worked 7 days a week, crazy hours. And in that time, he managed to still hold a relationship with his fiancée.
He was always talking about the McLaren F1. Cost $1 million, fastest production car in the world. Only 64 were made. I said, why don't you just go out and buy a McLaren F1? And then a week later, he did. When we were acquired, a number of us were talking about where Elon would be in the future. And we said, either he'll be the richest guy on the planet, or he'll be totally dead broke. But there would be nothing in between.
When Elon, first started talking to me about, the ultimate goal of making humanity a multiplanetary species, you probably won't use this, but, this is what I thought. First of all, okay. I didn't quite get his name. Elon Musk is what I thought he said. And I had no clue what PayPal was. He mentioned that. It seemed like a funny name to me. And that he was looking for a Russian rocket to do an experiment to Mars. And I was the guy he was told could help him do that. The standard Delta rocket, it was about $80 to $100 million. You could go to Russia and buy a similar size rocket for $2 million. We got into it, classic military complex, razor wire on the top, security and guns. And finally we got down to where everybody was gathered, including the chief designer. In classic European style, we didn't just jump into business. We started to drink. And drink a little vodka, and then we'd have a toast, toast to the Russians, toast to the Americans, and toast to Elon, toast to the internet. And so Elon starts to tell the chief designer, all about his idea of multiplanetary species. And here's Elon in his late 20s, and they don't know him. He looks like he just walked in off the street. And they took that as a sign of disrespect. The chief designer was very angry. He chopped Elon off mid-sentence, started staccato Russian. This is a machine of war. This is not a toy for some young kid from Silicon Valley. And this is not internet bullshit here. We're talking life and death. Then he spit on Elon's shoes. He spit on my shoes. Elon turned to me and he said, "I think you spit on our shoes." And I said, "Yeah." We got through all that. We got on the Delta flight back to New York. Mike and I sat back, ordered some whiskey, and we're having a drink. We're watching Elon. He's sitting 2 or 3 rows up from us, and he's on his computer, and he's working really, really diligently. Mike elbows me, and he said, "What the fuck do you think that idiot savant is up to up there?" And Elon turns around, and he looked at us, and this is one of the few times he looks you directly in the eye, and he says, "Fuck you both." He says, "I think we can build this rocket ourselves." And he said, "I've got a spreadsheet." We started looking at it. It was remarkable. He says, we're gonna build this when we get home. And Mike and I just said, okay.
I remember emailing Elon again and saying, hey, so what's next? And a rocket company? Yeah, sign me up.
Say your name, spell it for me, tell me what you do.
Elon Musk, Elon Musk, Chief Executive Officer of Space Exploration Technologies, or SpaceX.
Couldn't hire anybody out of industry because all my friends that were in the industry just thought, no way am I going to come there. You guys are going to fail.
I think there's only so much we can learn by looking through a telescope, and eventually we need to go out there if we're to find the answer.
The first time I met him was at a amateur rocket weekend, and then later on, he came to my house. And so I sent the whole family to the movies, go watch a movie. We talked for a long time. We talked more than 2 hours, and when they came back, he was still there. I think it's actually pretty smart to do this, to go to somebody and check out the house, right? And you know, the overall impression is so much more complete if you look at how they live.
There was no power, there was no water, plumbing. We had to literally bring everything out there.
The logistics were terrible. Just trying to get liquid oxygen there in the tropics was quite a feat. So there was intense meetings where let's not fail again. He started working with us to optimize the rocket to get as much out of it as possible. He was technically very strong even though he was just learning about rockets. And the one thing I noticed, if people were negative, they were not in the next meeting. He said, a company is a bunch of vectors. Each person is a vector, and they need to point in the direction that you want to go. Bureaucracy and office politics and low morale, it's almost random vectors. He was always about making all the vectors, which all the employees, pointing in the right direction forward, moving forward.
Every car startup in America since Ford has gone bankrupt. There was Rosen Motors, there was DeLorean, there was Fisker, car company after car company, and large amounts of money and a large amount of time would often be invested.
My original role was the office manager, so I was responsible for basically everything at the company that wasn't engineering. We were a startup, we were very scrappy, we hardly spent any money on anything, but we want to launch the Roadster in 6 weeks and go. It wasn't until Zach and Doreen found the faults that we then realized that we had substandard parts on those cars, which quite frankly pissed me off.
I want names named.
At the time, there was incredible pressure on Elon. You know, how are you going to tell the hardest working man in the world that, like, no, I can't get that done?
If someone's always on the hot seat and is always the root cause for problems, they will not be part of this organization long term. It's not okay to be unhappy and part of this company. Right. And so if somebody can't get happy, get divorced.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Speak from personal experience.
To work at Tesla, you have to be a little crazy. You really need to be more dedicated to the mission than you are to your own personal growth. Between Elon and I, there was an understanding that I was in it for the mission as he was in it for the mission.
All a company is a group of people that have gathered together to create a product or service. Are these efforts that people are expending, are they resulting in a better product or service? And if they're not, stop those efforts.
Elon can be very overbearing. I've seen Elon fire dozens and dozens and dozens of people.
He wouldn't ask anything of you or ask you to work harder than he was working himself. And so I just kept trying to nail it every single time. I was drinking out of a fire hose every single day for years and years and years. So it just felt like how we did things.
I feel bad that I lost those prime years with my daughter. I didn't have as much contact with my family as I otherwise would have. I don't know how he does it. He just keeps going and going and going. He's amazing. The amount of energy that man has, like, he can just take the pain of dealing with it constantly, and most of us can't.
I had decided that I had no work-life balance and I needed to take a break, but I remember sitting in a room with him and telling him that my 3-year-old son was calling me dad and that I needed to take a break.
Work hard every waking hour. If somebody else is working 50 hours and you're working 100, you'll get twice as much done in the course of a year as the other company.
Yeah, I retired from Apple, and I started getting these emails. George, Elon Musk would like to speak to you. Give me a call. And delete. I mean, I assumed this was junk mail. Elon got on the phone, and we started chatting. Why don't you come work for the company? I was like, I've retired, and I need to spend time with my wife and kids and stuff like that. He said, come out to LA. Met with Elon, and I thought he was special. He asked me, if you were going to bring Tesla EVs to market, how would you do it? I said, well, I'd do it just like Apple. There's a whole education thing we had to go through at Apple, and there's going to be a whole education thing we're going to have to do with EVs. How much does it cost to charge? And how do I charge this? And there's all these questions out there. The Roadster was proof of concept, but the Model S was the first car that was really meant for people to drive like a regular car. We would talk to people about the car and show it to them and all that. And then they'd say, well, how do I get one of these? And with a straight face, we would look them in the eye and we would say, well, give me $5,000 today and I'll give you a car in a couple years. They go, what? I go, yeah, you give me a $5,000 deposit today and we'll send you a car in a couple years. I go, you're kidding. They go, no, that's what we do. We'll give you a reservation number, and unless you want one of the first 1,000. If you want one of the first 1,000, you got to give me $40,000 today, and I'll send you a car in a couple years. And people did it.
I jokingly describe myself as the Pied Piper of super nerds. My role is essentially to go find people 1,000 times smarter than me, get them excited about solving a really hard problem. One of the ways that we explained what the SpaceX culture was, and this was in order to be really honest with people. SpaceX is special forces. We take on the missions that others deem impossible. This will be the hardest thing you will ever do in your life. It is the kind of personality that wants to be a Navy SEAL, the engineering equivalent of that. It will be bruising and punishing and uncomfortable every day. Growth is rarely comfortable. If you are comfortable, you are probably not growing. To work for Elon is to be comfortable in a constant state of discomfort. He has 10,000 times more what the average person has streaming through their brain at any given time. Our ability to think about and analyze a problem is nothing compared to how his brain works. Elon aspires to be like the greatest engineer in the history of the world. He does have the cognitive horsepower of the geniuses that we have seen come before us.
But he's not Einstein, is he?
I think he is smarter than Einstein.
Elon tweeted, Tesla will be profitable in Q1 2013. It's like, should we talk about this? We had to deliver 4,750 cars. In Q2 of 2012, we delivered 12 cars.
He asked us to do the impossible, but he modeled that himself. So, how are you going to tell the hardest working man in the world that, like, no, I can't get that done?
It was tough. I mean, 4 hours of sleep a night. My wife left and went to Florida. She left around the 15th of February. She said, I can't watch you anymore. It was the toughest month I ever worked. He assumed that we weren't doing enough fast enough to deliver enough cars in Q1 of 2013. Too little, too late. And he kept saying, too little, too late.
There were moments when he would definitely get upset, and you've heard of him firing people on the spot. Yes, all of that happened. When Elon was behaving badly, I would kind of liken it to a toddler, right? Like, that was having a tantrum about something or upset about something.
Yeah, my desk is in the factory. It's just right over there. I can show you where it is.
He wants to take us by his desk.
He moved his desk over to near my desk so that he could watch what was going on every single day.
I think it's important for a leader to be at the front lines. My biggest challenge is ramping up production. And so what's that about? It's about being in the factory and understanding where the issues are. And so I want the very opposite of being up in an ivory tower. I want to be in the middle of the battle. And so that means putting my desk in the middle of the factory. So that's where it is.
It's a noticeably clean desk with the exception of the award.
Yeah, I mean, it's got, I guess it's the Motor Trend Award, my sunglasses, and then coffee.
Yeah, this is my desk.
There were a number of times that I witnessed Elon sleeping in the factory, showing people how important it is to be focused on finding a solution. Because if Elon Musk can take the time to sleep there and be there 24 hours a day, everyone else should make the time.
Factory's ramping up, and they're building cars, but it's going to be close. Could they build enough? And we're halfway through the quarter, and we weren't making it. We were not making it. And I'm really getting emotional here because this was really a tough time. And we started bringing people from Europe, bringing people from all over to help deliver cars. The IT team was washing cars. Other departments, marketing was driving them to the other end of the parking lot. And I started an email trail to Elon every night, telling him, here's how many have sold, here's how many delivered, here's how many we have deposits on, and here's where we stand. And it didn't look good. It did not look good. And I would send it to him at 11:30, and he'd respond back at 11:35. And it just didn't look good, and he let me know. Then on the Tuesday, the last week of the quarter, I sent him one. And I remember it as if it was yesterday. He said, this looks promising. And it was Saturday at 3 o'clock. We delivered the 4,750th car, 3 o'clock. We made $11 million that quarter, put us over the hump, stocking from $20 to $90, and Tesla became a viable company. I stood up on a desk like this, called everybody around, and I said, you guys have no idea how impactful it is what you just did. You can't understand it, but what you just did is monumental, not just for Tesla, but for what we're going to do for mankind. You should all feel extraordinary sense of accomplishment. We were a real company on March 31st, 2013.
SpaceX is fundamentally a vehicle to make a thriving future for humanity in space possible. You cannot do that with $200 million rockets. That is the equivalent of buying a yacht, sailing it from here to France, and then essentially setting it on fire. That makes no sense. I think he's an incredible gift to the world. He is arguably the best leader on the face of the planet. I would take the bad with the good, because if you mess with the recipe, you might mess with the magic. His brain is fundamentally more efficient. There are times where, I might think I disagree, but, he's probably, thought it through in a way that I haven't thought about it. If he asks me to jump, I'm gonna ask him how high.
To work at Tesla, I think you really need to be inspired by more than just the job that they're doing on a day-to-day basis, but why they're doing it. Those are the people that are called to the mission and will stay with the company and help it to succeed. I think you'll find the majority of people that have worked definitely at Tesla, and I would assume probably at SpaceX, to say, he asks us to do the impossible, but it's only unattainable until you attain it, right?
He gets up every morning thinking, what can I do for humanity today? How can I do something that will be impactful to humanity of the future? That's what he's focused on.
If you look at who the most famous human being in all of human history is, I can tell you who that is. Yeah, but I can't tell you what their name is. I can't tell you what sex the person is, but I can tell you it's going to be the first human born on another planet like Mars, right? So this vision is what drives Elon.
There were things that would come out of his mouth and words that he would say to people that under any amount of stress were not okay. He was more erratic. I can count 3 times that he got really upset with me. And the last time He was yelling at me about a mistake that someone on my team made. And he was really angry. And there was a disconnect. I wasn't seeing Elon. I was seeing this person being overtaken by this anger. It was so bizarre, and kind of the blink of an eye, I saw him snap out of it and recognize that it was me, and it was fine. And he apologized to me the next day. But it was in that moment that I decided I've hit my limit and it is time to go. It's a combination of he doesn't realize quite what the impact of his words are going to be in a lot of cases. And in a lot of other cases, I just don't think he cares.
He wants to be known as the greatest engineer that we have seen in our lifetimes. He genuinely wants to move humankind forward, and he wants us to challenge ourselves. That is a more exciting future for humankind from his standpoint than one where we are forever anchored to Earth.
No question he's going to go to Mars. Why do you think he's doing the Boring Company? He's doing the Boring Company. He's going to send one up there so he can bore underground and you can have some shade. Why do you think he's doing electric? Because you can use solar up there in Mars, and you can solar to battery, battery to vehicle, battery to home. Why do you think he's doing that? Because you got to have that. You can't go up there and plug something in. There's a much bigger picture in Elon's mind than what mere mortals are aware of today. But when you step back and you look at it, some way or another, it all goes together.
He learned everything about Tesla, Einstein. Like, he has learned everything that they knew, and he's trying to take it to the next level. So I think he is the closest thing that we have to that kind of a figure in our day and age. And I think by the time he is done building his legacy, it will be unquestionable that he is a combination of Einstein, Tesla, and Rockefeller. When you set out to do something incredibly hard, there's going to be like a lot of hard days that go along with that.
There's parts of him that you'll never know, like what motivates him. How did he get so strong of will? You know, but what I can say without a doubt is he's genuine. There is not a shred of doubt in my mind. There isn't an ulterior motive or a secret greedy, you know, I'm gonna have my, you know, volcano island and do whatever. Like, no, he leads with his heart on his sleeve in a very honest, I would say almost overly honest projection of both opportunity and risk.